James Thomas, Morning Blend. They make
Hi,
noise.
Hi,
James.
James.
Hi, ladies. They're still making noise. They
Hi.
make noise. They made headlines. They made history. We're talking about Brick Brox's original outrageous. Today I have Joanna Vanderham, Shannon Watson, and Zoe Bruff. Hi, ladies. How are you?
We're
Great. How are
great, James. How
you?
are you?
I'm great. So, Shannon, tell us about Unity Mitford.
Well, Unity, we meet her when she's 17, and we see her in this house when she's quite young, playing with her sisters, and then things start to take a very dark turn with her um, as she sort of grows into her own, and um, because of the time that they were living in, there was a lot of German politics being talked about in Britain, and she was attracted to that. So,
Kind of catches me off guard with that one. Joanna, let's talk about Diana.
Diana is a sort of a fascinating character for me because I took on the role because I really wanted the challenge of playing someone who felt very, very different from me, and she thinks differently, um and so stepping into this character, it was kind of how am I going to do that with authenticity? And luckily there was so much research that we could do, wasn't there? There was a
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
wealth of information about these women that's out there. And so I really lent on that. And one of the things that I found the most interesting is in Diana's own memoir, she just completely skips the fact that she divorces Brian Guinness. Like she just doesn't even mention it. And I'm like, that is an insight into how her brain works. And I think it was Mary Lovell who told me at the read through that Diana would, when she was given a piece of information that she didn't agree with, didn't like, didn't want to hear, that she would sort of receive it, close her eyes, process it. And by the time she'd open her eyes, it was if you hadn't said it. And again, I'm like, what kind of person can do that? So I tried to pepper in those little key moments into the performance. And but I think arguably it's a similar thing with Shannon, and I think that's why the show is so well done, is that you meet these women before they become politically radicalized and politically extreme. And so the show itself is sort of raising the question of how does that happen, and why did it happen to these women? And that's what makes it so fascinating.
Sounds very interesting. Zoe, talk about Jessica.
Yeah, Jessica, I learned a lot from Jessica because of the world she grew up in, being a socialite and from aristocracy and living amongst these high class members of society and still not being fulfilled in what she and in the way she lives. So many people living in that environment would go, I'm set for life, I'm going to marry probably someone very well off, have kids, have a very stable life. But she was always looking at the bigger picture, looking at the news and going, how can I make a difference for the better, not for the worse? And seeing how these people would behave in these environments that she would be surrounded by, and not feeling like she could relate to a single person in that room. And I think for me that was just so powerful to kind of explore and delve into more than anything. And obviously later in life she becomes a real activist in society with civil rights and marries a really impressive lawyer. And yeah, she just, even up to the day she dies, she doesn't quit, which I think is incredible.
Is there some similarity between Jessica and Diana, Zoe and Shannon? Is there similarities there?
I
You think-
I
Well, I
don't
think I
know.
think
I
one
think
of the things that the sisters have in common is that they are quite stubborn.
yeah, and
So once
strong-willed.
they've made a decision and
Yeah.
they've set themselves on a course, they are going to follow through with that. So from Diana, it would be, I am going to marry Oswald Mosley. I'm going to be with Oswald Mosley, then I'm going to make him marry me, and then we are going to be a political powerhouse. And
Yeah.
she's really the one driving that relationship. And she kind of has this sort of Lady Macbeth element to her. But I do feel like the other girls are also super stubborn.
Yeah, and I also
Yeah.
think something they all have in common is they never leave it to fate. They always get up and do something about it. And they never sit down being lazy thinking it will come to me, which they could. But if they did do that, they would have never got where they were. And I think they're constantly I think they're movers and shakers in ways. They get up, and if they want to do something, they'll do it. And they also won't take no for an answer.
Ladies, it almost sounds like today's women, but my question is, what do you want the audience to take away from this? Because it really sounds like the sisters should be here in the 21st century versus where they were.
Yeah, I mean, I think they couldn't have been the only women at that time thinking the way that they thought, but they were in a really privileged position that they were able to actually go through with it, and they were in the right rooms talking to the right people or the wrong people. And so they had access that other women maybe didn't have. But of course, they do feel modern, but I think that's possibly because there's not a huge amount of documentation about what your average woman was thinking and feeling at the time. But they couldn't have been the only people who were thinking that way. But I agree. I do feel like the show feels incredibly modern, and part of that is the editing and the sound design and the cinematography, and that was really inspired by the intelligence of these women and how quickly they thought, and how their comedy and the humor that they had with each other, it's all kind of influenced the tone of the show. And so I think that's why it's going to feel like a really modern it's going to feel like a show that needs to be seen and talked about now.
And I also think what was a pointer that we absolutely wanted to hammer in was going on from accent wise, we didn't want to alienate them by actually depicting what their real accent was, because it is quite unrelatable and quite extreme. So I think that was a decision and a choice that we wanted to make, which was by having this modern outlook on them. Well, that helped, and that was aided through our vocal choice and our dialect. So we didn't give them this really extreme RP accent, which like modern audiences couldn't relate to in any way.
You don't hear anymore.
And you don't hear it anymore. You don't. No. It's very plummy, and it's very kind of.
Can you do it?
It's very like this.
Sort of like that.
Yes, and you never show any teeth.
There's sort of something in your mouth.
Zoe, Joanna, Shannon, thank you so much for being with us. Shannon, I think I'm going to be more interested in this, how Unity changes into what she does. I'm going to be very interested in that. Ladies, thank you again for joining us on Morning Blend.
Thank you so much.
Bye.